champion mentor Chot Reyes returns as the national men's basketball team head coach. Find out which players he thinks might suit up for the Gilas pool. The country lists around 9,500 new COVID-19 infections today. It is the lowest single-day increase since January 4, when fresh cases were more than 5,000. There are over 176,000 active cases, excluding data from 10 testing laboratories. 24,210 people recovered, while 51 others died. The Okta Research Group earlier projected daily cases would drop to fewer than 10,000 in the next few weeks, and just around 5,000 by late February. Does this mean the worst of the COVID-19 surge is over? Okta believes it is, at least for most parts of the country. It says many areas have either peaked or are peaking.
Trends can still change. What we're just saying is that the worst may be over, meaning that the peak has happened. Peak of the surge has happened in many of the areas. Of course, that this includes NCR and all of Calabarzon, which is now under moderate risk. This also includes Central Luzon. Actually, most of Luzon is probably on a decreasing trend already, or a downward trajectory. This also includes Cebu City, which is already having a decrease in cases, and Davao City.
But the group notes there is a significant increase in new cases in a number of areas in Mindanao.
There's still considerable transmission, include Bukidnon, Camiguin, Cotabato, Davao de Oro, Davao del Norte, Davao Occidental, Davao Oriental, Maguindanao, Negros Oriental, Sarangani, South Cotabato, Sultan Kudarat. So I will note that only Negros Oriental is from the Visayas region. Most of the provinces are from Mindanao, and none are in Luzon.
Okta also says infections in Metro Manila may now be about twice as high as what is being reported by the Health Department. That is, if antigen test results and unreported cases are included. Research fellow Guido David cites a lower positivity rate of 0.6% from the recent random antigen testing conducted by the Transportation Department on January 26 and 27. He notes this is a significant decline compared to his estimate early January, when he said that new cases in NCR were around 10 times higher than reported numbers based on the department's random testing on January 12 and 13. Around that time, there was a 12.4% positivity rate among tested passengers. Metro Manila is among the areas under the more relaxed alert level 2. Simpler travel rules for balikbayans take effect today. That is good news for returning Filipinos seeking to spend more time with their families. Tristan Nadalo has that story.
There's no place like home for these overseas Filipino workers arriving from Saudi Arabia, Singapore, and Bahrain. 11 international flights have been scheduled for arrival at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 1 on February 1st. The OFWs say the timing of their flights is perfect as it coincides with the first day of the no facility-based quarantine rule for fully vaccinated travelers. OFW and Filipino community leader in Saudi Arabia, Rolando Nicolas, is among those who went through the fast arrival process.
I'm very overwhelmed with the yung mga procedures. It is very fast. The flow is very good. So I commend the government.
Other OFWs say the new quarantine measure will give more time to be with their loved ones after working for years abroad.
Maganda po para sa pamilya. Hindi na po kailangan mag-quarantine. Pag nag-quarantine po sayang din po yung araw eh.
After passing through immigration and baggage claim areas, international travelers will now proceed to this assistance desk to process their documents or validate their proof of vaccination. There are desks assigned to overseas Filipino workers, returning Filipinos, seafarers, and foreign guests. And once cleared, they will proceed to the desk of the Bureau of Quarantine, wherein they will be given the clearance to go home, either on their personal ways or by availing government transportation services. OFWs leaving the country hopes this relaxed policy still holds when they come home in the future.
Kung ganun pa rin sistema may quarantine, hindi na lang magbabakasyon kasi sayang din naman eh. Doon may kikitain ka, pag uwi mo dito, Wala. Tapos quarantine ka pa. Maubos din naman sa quarantine.
OFW from England, Bernice Ogo, is also excited for her homecoming trip on February 10th with the new rules.
A lot of us haven't gone home. Ako, hindi pa ako umuwi since nandito ako, which is like more than 2 years na. So, isa itong blessing. Blessing talaga to. Hopefully, tuloy-tuloy to.
Amid concerns that the relaxed policy could lead to another surge in infection and potential super spreader events over shortcomings in monitoring, the government defends its new quarantine rules for fully vaccinated inbound travelers. The country will begin opening its borders to leisure travelers or foreign tourists on February 10th. Tristan Nodalo, CNN Philippines.
While the Philippines is reopening its borders, the United States is advising its citizens not to travel here. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention placed the Philippines in its Level 4 COVID-19 very high category. This means 500 cases per 100,000 residents have been recorded in the past 28 days. Aside from the Philippines, there are nearly 130 other countries also on the list. U.S. authorities remind Americans to reconsider traveling until they are fully vaccinated. In other global headlines, a new COVID-19 vaccine may soon be available in the United States. Novavax has formally requested the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for an emergency use authorization. The biotech company says its 2 large clinical trials show its doses have an efficacy rate of about 90%. Novavax uses a more traditional vaccine profile than the Pfizer or Moderna shots, which use mRNA technology. It also includes a small dose of lab-made COVID-19 to stimulate immunity. If approved, Novavax would be given in 2 doses, 3 weeks apart. The Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, meanwhile, has received full approval from the U.S. FDA. This makes it the second vaccine alongside Pfizer to have been granted full authorization. Moderna has named its COVID-19 shots Spikevax. So far, it is only approved for use on adults. As vaccination efforts continue, a city in the U.S. is removing its mask mandate this week. Beginning Friday, Denver will no longer require people to cover their faces or prove vaccination to enter businesses. They will only need to wear masks in schools and daycare centers. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock explains COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations are down in the city. He says the mandate may come back if those numbers rise again. And over in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has tested positive for COVID-19. He says he's feeling fine and is working remotely this week following public health guidelines. At least one of Trudeau's children also contracted COVID-19. His family started isolating days ago after being exposed to the virus. They're staying in an undisclosed location as people opposing health restrictions are protesting in the capital, Ottawa. Coming up on Newsnight, how is the government preparing for the reopening of borders to foreign tourists next week? Stay tuned.
Libre kong San Miguel Beer, basta akin ng Tansan. Tansan?
Sa San Miguel Oktoberfest Instant GCash Panalo Promo, uulan ng up to 100 million pesos in GCash prizes. Buy any San Miguel beer, hanapin ang code sa crown. Kung meron, panalo ka! Iscan ang QR code sa mga posters at Facebook. I-type ang code and win!
Sali na!
Available in areas where allowed. See posters for full details. Promo runs from September 1 to December 31, 2021. Per DOH FDA CFR permit number 0424 series of 2021. Drink responsibly.
RPN DXKP Pagadian. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda. RPN. Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. Live to the world. Pinaagi sa FB page. Karon, mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play og Apple Store, YouTube og Twitter. Alang sa mas kipakusgan nga mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran og kalingawan. Ang mas kipakusgan nga inyong Radyo Ronda.
Denver, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. An expert warning against misinformation on social media as he emphasizes the importance of vaccinating children against COVID-19. Philippine Pediatric Society Chairperson Dr. Tim Jimenez urges parents to allow the inoculation of their kids. She says COVID-19 shots will provide protection if it still outweigh the risks. Jimenez also reminds parents to consult real health experts if they have any concerns.
There is no such thing as natural resistance. No? All of us are susceptible po to catching the virus. No, that's number one. Pero children do better po than yung mga adults na tinatamaan po ng COVID. No? Usually kasi po yung mga adults ang may comorbid. So ang reason po bakit tayo ay nagbibigay ng bakuna sa mga bata kasi pwede din silang maapektuhan po, no? At isa pong layer of protection ang vaccination in general po against the virus.
The government is set to begin the rollout of COVID-19 doses for children aged 5 through 11 this Friday. They will be receiving the Pfizer vaccine, the only brand authorized for emergency use on the age group. 6 sites will be used as vaccination centers here in Metro Manila. The inoculation of minors aged 12 to 17 began in November last year. Now, tourism accounted for nearly 13% of the economy in 2019, but that shrank to just over 5% during the COVID-19 pandemic. In a bid to revive the industry, the government is allowing fully vaccinated travelers to enter the country beginning Thursday next week. Caroline Bonkin tells us more.
From a party island, tourists will experience a new phase of Boracay as a wellness and recreation destination. Island workers relying mainly on tourism are hopeful this would attract more visitors as Boracay reopens its doors to foreign travelers.
Yun talaga yung inaantay namin. Boracay has been ready. Protocols and all the health requirements are being at place.
Beginning February 10th, fully vaccinated foreign tourists will be allowed to enter the Philippines without undergoing quarantine as long as they test negative in an RT-PCR test within 48 hours before departure. This is welcome news for an industry that's been badly hit by the pandemic.
As soon as the Philippines announced that magbubukas tayo, yung email daw nila punong-puno na raw ng mga inquiries na gusto nang pumunta dito.
Officials are optimistic precautions like daily temperature checks, mandatory wearing of masks, vaccinations, and social distancing measures can curb the spread of the virus.
We already, unlike nung 2020, hindi natin alam kung ano yung do's and don'ts. Pero ngayon, meron ng best practices that we can adopt from other countries.
All tourism workers have been fully vaccinated except those in Siargao after Typhoon Odette halted vaccinations. All tourist destinations will be open to foreign guests except for Siargao Island that's still recovering from devastation. In Boracay, tourism workers have gone through refresher courses. The island has a safe travel stamp from the World Travel and Tourism Council, which means it has adopted global health standardized protocols much needed this pandemic.
Like yung nasa mga skills enhancement ng mga tourism frontliners natin para at least pagdating ng bisita, at least kumbaga refresh sila and how to handle tourists in the new normal.
Wala na kaming masyadong physical contacts with the guests. Tour guide will be required na lang during the activity upon their arrival at the hotel.
Secretary Puyat assures workers' safety are a priority as the industry recovers from loss of 1 million jobs. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
The country was supposed to allow the entry of international tourists in December, but that was halted because of the Omicron surge. Beginning today, meantime, fully vaccinated Filipino tourists and returning residents may enter Boracay Island in Aklan even without a negative RT-PCR test result. Aklan Governor Florencio Miraflores believes the province is again ready to loosen restrictions with COVID cases steadily going down. Aklan is currently under alert level 3. COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon is looking to file an impeachment complaint against fellow Commissioner Amy Ferolino, the assigned writer of the supposedly delayed decision on the 3 disqualification cases against former Senator Bongbong Marcos. Now, that threat comes as Guanzon is scheduled to retire tomorrow. Ferolino will remain in COMELEC until 2028. Co-commissioners are impeachable officials. Meanwhile, their colleague in the 1st Division, Marlon Casquejo, will transfer to the 2nd Division, which means he will be unable to cast his vote on the Marcos cases after Wednesday.
I will wait for the next election. Okay. Because, since she is for Bongbong Marcos, if he wins, what's the use of me filing an impeachment complaint? But if he loses, there's the rub. Aha! There's the rub. Commissioner Ferolino did this so that both of us, Commissioner Casquejo and I, cannot cast our votes. I think they suspect that Commissioner Casquejo is also for DQ after I released my vote on January 17.
Guanzon adds she has informed Senate President Tito Soto which mail center has supposedly been influencing Ferolino to delay the decision.
Because grand design is for him to just run, finish the elections, hoping that he will really win without the Supreme Court yet ruling on his disqualification, and then hoping that the Supreme Court will also be slow in deciding it so that he can sit as president for a few years. Marcos Jr., you should issue a statement if you did not have a hand in this, sir.
Ferolino has yet to respond to requests for comment. Meanwhile, Marcos' spokesperson says Guanzon's remarks are better left ignored. A tandem for the elections bags the endorsement of controversial Pastor Apollo Quiboloy, while former top government officials back up presidential hopeful. Rex Remito gives us an update on aspirants 97 days before the Filipino votes.
Controversial Pastor Apollo Quiboloy is officially endorsing presidential hopeful Bongbong Marcos and his running mate Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. Quiboloy believes the tandem and its senatorial aspirants will win by a landslide in the May polls. Quiboloy had also endorsed Sara's father for president in 2016 and former Senator Mar Rojas in 2010.
At ngayon na siguro ang panahon para ilahad ko sa inyo ang aming suporta. 100% ako po ay sumusuporta sa unity team na kasama po ang ating pinakamamahal, pinalanggang mayor sa Davao City, na karon mo dagan bilang Vice President.
Quiboloy, the spiritual advisor of President Duterte, was recently indicted for sex trafficking charges in the U.S. He is the founder of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, the name above every name, which claims to have 6 million members around the world. More former top government officials are endorsing Vice President Leni Robredo's presidential bid. Most of them, former cabinet members, military chiefs, and diplomats, serve under the administration of the late President Noynoy Aquino. In a joint statement, they say Robredo has all the qualities of an ideal chief executive and armed forces commander-in-chief. Senator Ping Lacson wants government to minimize the importation of agricultural products to ensure food security. The presidential aspirant says this will also help local farmers and raisers to increase their productivity.
Ang unang solusyon natin, import kagad. Pag may importation, bukod sa pampatay sa mga farmers at saka fishermen, corruption yun eh. Kasi meron ngang tinatawag na per kilo na usapan.
Manila Mayor Isko Moreno promises to cut by half the excise tax on petroleum products and tax on electricity. Moreno believes this will raise the income of farmers, fisherfolk, and even consumers as prices of basic goods go down. If he wins, he vows his administration will also buy the surplus produce of farmers at right prices to assure them of income. Calyodi de Guzman is calling for humane pay hikes for all workers to help families cope with rising prices. He says the idea of a national living wage should now be discussed. Rex Remitio, CNN Philippines.
64 aspirants are vying for 12 Senate slots this elections, 3 of them all standing for human rights, took part in the weekly senatorial forum of CNN Philippines. Paige Javier gives us the highlights.
The fight continues for 3 aspirants who failed to clinch a Senate seat in the 2019 elections. Former Congressman Nery Colmenares, human rights lawyer Chel Diokno, and civic leader Samira Gutok were the latest hopefuls to woo voters. The 3 are known human rights defenders, so it was no surprise they opposed a proposal to require adult Filipinos to train and serve in the military.
From the Muslim Filipinos, that will be a bit of insensitive to our women who have certain limitations in physicality of movement and even publicly mixing with our men.
I disagree with that completely. The students doesn't need military training, especially if the teachings for the youth is for repression.
I'm totally against the mandatory military enlistment. Hindi na ba tayo nadala doon sa mga nangyari noon na mga hazing, mga corruption?
On problems arising from the growing population, the senatorial aspirants believe the solution goes beyond the reproductive health law.
Kahit lumaki pa ang population natin, kaya naman basta tama lang ang pamamahala ng gobyerno. Wala lang korupsyon. May mga hanap buhay ang taong bayan.
Aside from doing a lot of family planning, education, we also have to make sure that the present population, especially those of working age, are provided with enough jobs.
Importante po that we as Filipino households ay alam natin how it relates to management. Reproductive health is one mechanism.
The 3 also agreed on other key issues. They answered yes to making public the Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, or SALN, of government officials, resuming talks with communist rebels, and running for the Senate in the absence of pork barrel. However, they opposed the reimposition of the death penalty for drug-related crimes.
Napakataas po ng cost ng medical needs ng ating mamamayan. Kaya libreng gamot at libreng paggamot. May budget para dyan.
Gusto ko sana mangyari ay magkaroon tayo ng libreng serbisyong legal sa bawat baryo. Gusto ko rin isulong yung isang pandemic management law.
Kinakailangan po talaga ng sistematiko, science-based, research-based na responde sa crisis. And it's not just a National Disaster Risk Council, but a department.
More aspirants will lay down their plan of action in the weekly senatorial forum. With less than 100 days left until the elections, information on our future leaders is needed, now more than ever. Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
Breaking news at this hour, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee recommending charges against Health Secretary Francisco Duque over the Pharmaly pharmaceutical scandal. The panel wants Duque to be charged with plunder, graft, and corruption in connection with the alleged misuse of pandemic response funds. It also says charges must be considered against President Rodrigo Duterte after his term. The committee said, and we quote, "After all, he was the one who appointed all the people who approved these transactions and aggressively protected and defended them when they were caught in this horrible crime against our people," unquote. Duque was not among the initial list of officials that the committee chairman, Senator Richard Gordon, wanted charged in the preliminary findings he disclosed in October. This is a developing story. We are reaching out to Secretary Duque and Malacanang for comment. We'll bring you these and more as soon as that information becomes available. Well, straight ahead on Newsnight, we talk about the highly anticipated comeback of champion coach Chot Reyes to the Gilas Pilipinas team, and the country once again searches for its Miss Universe candidate with a date set for coronation night. More after the break.
DXKP Pagadian. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda. RPN. Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. Live to the world, pinaagi sa FB page, karon mag-download na. Pinaagi sa Google Play, og Apple Store, YouTube, og Twitter. Alang sa mas kipakuskan ng mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran, og kalingawan. Ang mas kipakuskan nga inyong Radyo Ronda.
Denver, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Making headlines in sports, Chot Reyes returning as head coach of Gilas Pilipinas. The Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas announced the champion mentor is leading the national men's basketball team beginning today. Coach Chot replaces Tab Baldwin, who stepped down to focus on his responsibilities for the Ateneo Blue Eagles. Talking to CNN Philippines, Coach Chot revealed why he came back to the team and which players might appear in the Gilas pool.
Of course, I was shocked initially, and I had to consult my family first very quickly. But I've always said it that it's really, I cannot turn my back to the call to the national call. Right, we want to continue working on the younger players. The majority of the players that we had identified back in 2018, majority of whom are in Coach Tab's pool as of today. But I think the fact that they're no longer the original pool, because so many of them are in different places around the world already, we now have to make some adjustments.
Coach Chot is known for steering Gilas to a historic silver medal win in the 2013 FIBA Asia Championship. This earned the Philippines its first World Cup ticket in 36 years. And from the court to the pageant stage, who will follow in Beatriz Luigi Gomez's footsteps to vie for the Miss Universe crown? We'll find out soon, with the coronation night set for April 30. Screening for Miss Universe Philippines begins this month. Like last year, there is no minimum height requirement for aspiring queens. The application period closes on the 15th. Speaking of queens, from her success in music and makeup, Rihanna is taking on a new challenge, becoming a mom. The 9-time Grammy winner is expecting her first child with rapper ASAP Rocky. People magazine reports the 33-year-old debuted her baby bump in New York City over the weekend. In March 2020, Rihanna told British Vogue that she saw herself having 3 or 4 children in the next 10 years. And back here at home, Filipino-Chinese communities marking the beginning of the Lunar New Year today, February 1st. But for the second straight year, they will have to let go of the usual festivities because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Chinatown in Manila, the famous lion and dragon dances, firecrackers and fireworks displays, and other public activities are prohibited. But with or without those big events, we can still ring in the year of the water tiger with our loved ones, and our favorite tikoy and red ampao for good luck. Gong Shi Fat Chai and Kung Hei Fat Choi. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. and Politics as usual at 8:30. I'm Pio Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Presidential aspirant Leody de Guzman leads a commemoration for workers who died in a tragedy 40 years ago. 169 workers were buried under quick-drying cement on November 17, 1981, when the scaffolding collapsed during the construction of the Manila Film Center. De Guzman, a labor leader, called for justice for the victims and slammed the so-called golden age of infrastructure during the Marcos administration. De Guzman and his supporters also offered flowers with messages saying, quote, "Never again" in front of the theater. Let's now have an up-close conversation with Ka Leody himself. Good evening po, Ka Leody, and welcome to Newsnight.
Magandang gabi, Pia, at saka sa iyong mga taga-panood.
Oo. Ka Leody, babalikan po natin yung Manila Film Center dahil pag-uusapan naman po natin si Bongbong Marcos. Pero ito na po muna, no? Kayo po ba mismo yung nagko-compose ng mga tweets ninyo? Kayo po mismo yung nagtitweet? Or is someone doing that for you? In other words, someone thinks of what you tweet as...
Mayroon akong team na nagdi-discussion para doon sa mga ilalabas na statement ko sa bawat issue o bawat araw.
So,
kaya
pero
nagkakaroon kami ng diskusyon.
Okay, pero yung ideas mismo, sa inyo galing or sa kanila?
Sa akin din, minsan sa kanila, nagdi-discussion kami, nagpapalitan, sasabihin ko, okay yan. Sasabihin naman nila, okay din yan. Parang ganon, mayroon kaming team na nag-uusap-usap sa mga statement kong ilalabas.
Isa sa mga statements na nilabas po ninyo sa social media ay yung meron kayong parang challenge kay Sara Duterte na sige tumakbo ka para, and we quote, yung pagkamuhi daw sa pamilya nila lumabas daw kapag tumakbo si Sara and makikita daw sa elections. When you came out with that, Ka Leody, ang tingin nyo ba tama yung statement nyo? Because if you look at the surveys, well, at the time, no, when she was still included doon sa presidential rankings, mataas ang survey ranking niya eh. So, paano po yun? How can you say na lalabas yung pagkamuhi or hindi siya mananalo sa eleksyon dahil galit ang tao sa kanyang pamilya?
May ganun akong reading na yung mga tao sa pagdating ng eleksyon ay magdi-decide at ang kanilang decision ay magbabatay doon sa kanilang halos 6 years na panunungkulan ng kanyang ama na hindi naman talaga nangyari yung pangako ng kanyang ama dahil sa ang paraan ay pananakot at palpak talaga yung kanyang ginawa sa nakalipas na halos mag-6 na taon na. At ang tingin ko ay magdi-decide ang taong bayan pagdating ng eleksyon.
Well, anong tingin po ninyo sa so-called BBM Bongbong Marcos, Sara Duterte tandem? Although nasa iba't ibang partido sila, they're supposed to be a tandem now. They're going to be supposedly running together. What do you think of that?
Tingin ko isang natural na bagay yun. Talaga namang nagsasama-sama yung mga magkakapareho. Para nga bang yung lumang kasabihan na bird of the same feather flock together. Parehong dinastiya, parehong akusado sa pagnanakaw, pareho ding akusado sa pagpatay. Kaya natural sa tingin ko na magsama silang dalawa.
Pag sinabi po ninyo pagpatay, you're referring of course to the war on drugs of President Duterte. If you were president, if you won in the election and you were president, what kind, no? Anong klaseng war on drugs ang gagawin nyo? Dahil let's be honest, talagang problema naman talaga yung droga sa atin eh. So we do need to do something about it. But how would you handle it?
Hindi sa paraang pagpatay. Talagang lalabanan yung droga. Pero ang approach ay hindi dun sa pagpapatayin yung mga involved at saka yung mga biktima ng droga, kundi ituklasin ano ba yung root cause ng droga. Ako naniniwala na malaking bahagi ng dahilan niyan ay yung laganap na kahirapan ng ating mga mamayan. Kaya dapat yun ang i-address. At itrato na ito'y isang health problem. At hindi ito mga parang police problem na sundalo at pulis ang ihaharap. Ganun ko i-approach ito. At tama naman na dapat harapin yan. Pero yun nga, sa akin, yung root cause ng problem ang dapat i-address.
Okay, nabanggit po ninyo ang salitang health. So syempre, meron po tayong pandemya ngayon, this health crisis. How would you manage it differently?
Siyempre, yung sa COVID, dapat iba rin, no? Hindi rin parang solusyong militar ang paraan. At hindi dapat ang mga nagpapatakbo niyan at nagmamanage sa mga general ng ating mga kasundalohan o kapulisan. Kundi dapat mga expert ng medical ang siyang dapat namumuno at nagpapasya doon sa mga dapat gawin. Doon sa drugs ay dapat rehabilitation. Kinakailangan ay i-rehabilitate natin, iligtas natin yung mga biktima ng droga at yung mga siyang nagpapakana, yung mga drug lord, ay dapat ay makulong ang lahat ng iyan. Hindi dapat patakasin.
Balik po tayo sa health crisis sa pandemya, Kaliodi. Sino po yung pipiliin yung health secretary?
Pwede niya si Leachon na siyang parang vocal ngayon na nagpapaliwanag ng mga scientific na approach tungkol doon sa paglaban sa COVID. Pwede siya na isang contender para sa posisyon na yun.
Okay. Kanina lamang before we introduced you, Kaliodi, napag-usapan po natin yung Manila Film Center. No? Of course, 1981, so that happened 40 years ago. In other words, there is an entire generation of Filipinos who don't even know that happened. No? So, ang tagal na ng panahon, 35, 36 years since EDSA 86. So, the question now is, you have Bongbong Marcos running, tapos ang daming nagsasabi, paano tayo nakarating sa puntong ito? Nagka-EDSA tayo noong 1986, although kayo pa sa kaliwa, no? Medyo wala po kayo sa EDSA. But anyway, ibang issue yon. Pero ang daming nagsasabi, kasalanan daw ng taong bayan dahil we have short memories. Now, we don't remember. That's why yung never again, never forget, para bang wala sa atin yun, ano? Pero pag tumingin po kayo sa history ng after EDSA, yung post-Marcos years, 35 years po yun, 26 years of those 35 years, mga administrations ng mga presidente na who were allied against Marcos. So ano po yung naging problema natin, Kaliodi, sa tingin ninyo?
Ako tingin ko kung bakit nagkaganyan, ay yung mismong pangako ng EDSA ay hindi naman natupad. Walang nangyari. Parang ipinagpatuloy lang yung mga pamamaraan, polisiya ng dating diktador na si Marcos. Yung inaasam ng mamaya na pagbabago ay hindi naman na i-deliver nung pumalit ng mga nagpalit-palit na gobyerno after Marcos. Kaya yung mga tao ay hindi ito isa bilang kalimot, kundi parang wala rin naman pala, baka mas mabuti pa yung dati. Kaya nagkakaroon ng ganung pagbalik sa desperasyon ng mamamayan doon sa kapalpakan din nung ini-offer nung pumalit kay Marcos. Yung bang elite democracy ay natigil lamang sa ilang bilang ng pamilya sa ating bansa. Hindi tumagos yung demokrasya sa hanay ng mga manggagawa, ng ating mga maralita, ng mga driver, ng magsasaka, ng mga pangkaraniwang tao. Hindi nila maramdaman. At ang masakit ay parang pagpapatuloy lamang ng mga karahasan, kahirapan, tuloy-tuloy na pangungutang, pagkabaon sa pagnanakaw, ay nagtuloy-tuloy lang naman yun eh.
Nagtuloy-tuloy, oo. Pati yung mga political families. Political families, nandun pa rin sila, no? In the post-Marcos Congress, for example, andyan sila lahat. But Kaliodi, are you saying na you agree with political analysts when they say that this election could be a referendum on EDSA and not just the Duterte administration, because you have Marcos who has 40% of the vote in the latest survey, in the latest survey rankings, above 40%, di ba?
Yung pagtaas ng rango ni Marcos o ni Sara, may malaking factor diyan yung perang pinapakawalan nila grabe kasi yung perang pinapakawalan para ipatampukin o baguhin, revise yung buong kasaysayan ng panahon ni Marcos. Kaya parang nabobola, nalilin lang yung ating mamayan using yung kanilang perang ninakaw nung panahon ng kailang panunungkulan.
Kalyodi, itutuloy po natin itong conversation na ito after the break. Still ahead on Newsnight, like we said, we're still going to get Kalyodi de Guzman's take on several issues. And we still have with us for up close presidential aspirant and labor leader Leody de Guzman. Leody, meron po kayong platform tungkol for women, and you also said that you would include women in your cabinet and LGBTQ. Is that enough to get the women's and the LGBTQ vote?
Mas ang intention ko dyan ay magkaroon talaga ng participation yung ating mga kababaihan. Mas yun ang aking intensyon. Yung boto, tupalo lang kung nagugustuhan nila yung aking plataforma. Pero magbumoto man sila sa akin o hindi, ang nakikita ko, kinakailangan i-empower natin yung mga kababaihan at huwag parang ilagay lang sa sideline. Simulan na natin na bigyan ng recognition at pagkilala yung mga kababaihan, yung mga
LGBTQ.
LGBTQ ay magkaroon din ng papel at huwag yung parang binabaliwala sila. Kasi tingin ko, malaki ang magiging contribution nila para sa pagsasaayos ng ating pamahalaan.
Pero pag kababaihan ang pinag-uusapan, syempre, one of the first women come to mind is Leni Robredo, at ang daming Leni supporters nagalit po sa inyo, no? Dahil sa inyong statement na lugaw na walang laman. Bakit po ninyo sinabi yon?
Kaugnayan doon sa kanyang statement kasi noong ko pa sinasabi, yung tungkol sa issue ng kontraktualisasyon, na naging sagot niya doon ay yung pag-aaralan at aalisin yung endo. Ay yung PIA, yung endo, ay matagal nang wala na yan at hindi na pinapractice ng mga negosyante. Ang pinapractice ng mga negosyante ngayon at siyang mukha ng kontraktualisasyon ngayon ay yung manpower agency. Doon na ipinasa ng mga kapitalista yung kanilang mga manggagawa sa manpower agency. At yun ang mukha ng kontraktualisasyon na dapat alisin.
Okay.
Yung endo, wala na yun eh. Hindi na nag-direct hire yung mga kapitalista. Yung poor labor na lang na ilang manggagawang kailangan nila, ang kanilang kinukuha. Pero majority ng kanilang mga manggagawa ay sinosource out nila yon doon sa mga manpower agency. At yun ang plano ko na dapat buwagin.
Okay. Nabanggit po ninyo yung salita o yung terminong kapitalista, no? And you have very, of course, as expected, very radical or progressive views on, for example, minimum wage, taxes sa mayayaman. Pero I'm not going to ask you to detail that. Ang question ko po, Kalyodi, is, are you expecting, you do know na hindi po kayo susuportahan ng big business, lalo na dahil sa mga plano ninyo, no? Because I'm sure ang sinasabi na, naku, naloko na pag ganyan ang gusto gawin ni Kalyodi de Guzman, hindi po ba? You know that, right? Or you think that you will still be supported?
Alam ko yun. At yun nga yung gusto kong baguhin doon sa aking politika dahil sa mahabang panahon, ang lahat ng nasa likod ng mga politikong tumatakbo, lalo na sa pagka-presidente o vice-presidente, or even sa Senate, ang mga nasa likod niyan ay puro mga big business, yung mga kartel, mga monopolyo, ng mga kilalang pangalang mga negosyante, na yun ang nananaig na interest na kailang isinusulong pagkatapos silang manalo. Na ang problema natin dyan, pagka ang interest ng mga big business ang nasunod, walang mangyayari talaga sa buhay ng mga manggagawa at ng sambayanan dahil yung kailang interest ay kontra sa interest ng mga manggagawa. Yung gusto ng mga manggagawa, ayaw nila. Yung gusto nila, ayaw namin dahil nakakasama sa amin eh. At ang isang larawan niyan, yung kontraktualisasyon. Yung kontraktualisasyon ay nagpapayaman sa iilan, pero nagpapahirap doon sa ating 45 million na mga manggagawa. Ganun din yung rice tarification law na ipinasa. Ay nagpapahirap yan doon sa 11 million na ating mga magsasaka, pero nagpapayaman yan doon sa mga negosyanteng importer ng bigas. Ay, yung mga ganyan. Kaya nga sabi ko, Pia, kung ipag-aadya na ako'y manalo, talagang babaguhin ko yung mga batas at patakaran na nagli-legalize sa pagyaman ng ilan at pagpapahirap sa ating mamamayan.
Naririnig ko na naman yung mga negosyante. Sinasabi na, naku, naloko na. Okay, pero Kalyodi, ito, ang mga yes or no questions na, and you know, syempre people are saying statement run kaya ito kay Kalyodi. But anyway, yes or no lang po ang sagot, wala na pong explanation. Number 1, do you favor easier public access sa mga SALN of the President, Vice President, members of Congress? Yes or no?
Yes.
Do you support lifting foreign ownership limits in the Constitution? Yes or no? I can guess.
Pakiulit, Pia.
Do you support lifting foreign ownership limits in the Constitution? No.
Yes.
Oh, talaga? Lifting foreign ownership limits, ha? Do you favor reimposition of death penalty for drug-related crimes? Yes or no? No. Should a sitting president be allowed to run for VP in the next election? However, medyo na-overtake na po yun. Never mind, kasi tatakbong senador si President Duterte. Our next question. Do you favor resuming peace talks with communist rebels? Yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then, should the country be more aggressive in protecting its maritime interests in the West Philippine Sea? Yes or no?
Medyo magulo.
Ay, sorry.
Pakiulit.
Should the country be more aggressive in protecting its maritime interests sa West Philippine Sea? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Yes po ang sagot ni Kalyodi de Guzman, ang ating guest ngayong gabi sa Up Close dito po sa Newsnight. Maraming salamat po sa inyo, Kalyodi. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat, Pia. Maraming salamat.